What should we say that we? Oh, hello, welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 100.
100. Wow, 100 episodes. We made it.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jasmin. All right. And before we get started, if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. We would also really appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you know when we upload new episodes. And if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, we thank you for that as well. We would also appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Spotify.
Before we get started, firstly, welcome back. We took a slightly longer break. We were planning on coming back last month, but we didn't.
Life.
We took a summer break so Jasmin could go traveling and other things. Like I always take a couple of weeks off in the summer myself, and so we took a bit of a break. And can't believe actually where the time's gone. It felt like we were never going to come back. So yeah, we're back, and we'll be back at least for the foreseeable weekly. I mean, we'll take another Christmas break, and then obviously, if anything happens, we'll no doubt not be there that week. But we kind of decided while we were off to have a think about the format of Geeks Unleashed. Whilst we're not going to deviate from it too much,
we're making some tweaks and changes. After 100 episodes, we have decided we want to do something a little different.
Well, we're gonna. So I remember there was a guy who once hit us up, and I can't remember when it was. It was quite a while ago. Maybe it was like around this year, episode 50 or something. And he said, like, do you guys not really have a set format? Do you guys kind of just do a wish-washy type approach? And I was like, yeah, actually, we do. That is kind of what we do. Like, well, we kind of had a bit of a format. We'd always do news. So basically, I think over the first 99 episodes, our show evolved. So we kind of were, I'd say the first 25 episodes, just finding our confidence with speaking and
getting used to this whole thing.
Yeah, and then and also just tweaking the format. So when we first started as well, we were during COVID. We had no real social life to speak of. Not because we don't have a social life, just the government said we couldn't, and so the government took it. It became very much like the Hunger Games in the real world. So we obviously we had plenty of time on our hands, and then time has become obviously more work.
Yep.
Actually wanting to get out and see people, then realizing people suck. No, I'm not joking. There's obviously just a lot going on all the time. And but while we were going through the first 99 episodes, we tweaked with things that we like to do, and we came up with different ideas. We did pilot season for a while. I think we did that for about 6 months, I think. Which I still quite liked, and also we were reviewing 2 things every week. Sometimes that was a whole season review plus something else, and actually now
a lot of work on our end.
Probably doing a whole season review now, we would probably do in just for one episode. But we kind of we've pared down things a little bit, and whilst we love a lot of different things like anime and comics and movies and TV shows, what I've tend to find is there's a podcast that just does Star Wars. There's a podcast that just does anime. There's a podcast that just do movies. And I guess I think we both talked while we felt that like we love all those things, our audience isn't gonna come back. Like if they listen to us do an anime review this week, and they're not going to come back next week if we're reviewing a zombie movie or something, and the following week we're reviewing a Blade graphic novel or not Blade Runner graphic novel, because not everybody's into the same things. Also, we became more conscious of time, our time and your time. So we started to think, actually, when we first started these things, these were like an hour and a half episodes, and that's quite long. So I think this year we started to bring it down to about an hour. And now I think we're discussing potentially around the 30 to 40 minute mark for an episode. This episode might be slightly longer because I'm waffling away.
But it's also our 100th episode, and we're doing some little catch up. So this one might be a bit longer.
Yeah, this one might be a bit longer because we're going to do some catching up in a minute. And also, but going forward, sort of 101 onwards, it'll be a little bit more pared down. So unless something major happens, the first thing we're going to do is kind of cut the news out. Now, there's a lot of places to do the news. You know, they're a lot more up to date than we are, like CBR, Bleeding Cool. You know, even was it Robbie on Pop Culture Philosophers? He does a weekly news catch up. There's a lot of places to do it. Maybe one day we'll do something separate like that if we fancy doing a little 10-minute news thing. But at the moment, we're going to take that news out. Now, that being said, if something major happens, like Will Smith slaps somebody again, we probably will talk about it. So, like, we couldn't not talk about something big like that. So,
Oh man.
I think we'd have to probably open up with, "Did you see what Will Smith did?" I'm sure he wishes nobody had seen that too. So,
Well,
so we're gonna have our normal intro. We say hello, tell people what we do, ask you to like and subscribe, tell your friends. One thing we never do actually is ask you to donate. Donations are always welcome. We should probably make more of a habit of actually asking for money.
yeah. We would love it if you guys would buy us a comic. We'd love it.
I mean, look, you know, if people were to donate regularly, maybe me and Jasmin can meet up in New York again and
Yeah.
go to Comic Con or something like that, or go to San Diego Comic Con. Unfortunately, we both had to pay out of our own pockets, but obviously donations are always welcome. Whatever people can give, that would always be welcome too. So we're going to cut the news out. We are going to keep our little catch-up format that we like doing, because it gives us an opportunity for me and Jasmin to share a little bit about our own personality.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, Jasmin does like some terrible things, which would be good to share with people.
I mean, this is true. I acknowledge that I like bad things. What can I say? But at least I acknowledge that they are bad and that I still like them.
equally, though, like I even put my hands up and say there are shows that I've committed to, which I know get more and more terrible. Like Falling Skies, it got worse with every season, but I was like, no, I'm in now. I can't stop. So,
no, and I am definitely like, I will peace out. I'm like, oh, this episode, no, you pissed me off too bad. Like, I'm out. I'm done.
I think it's with me. I think I have OCD, so I'm like, I have this completionist thing. Like, I have to start. Sorry, if I start, I have to finish. So, anyway, so yeah, we're going to cut the news out. But what we thought we might do, so we're going to keep with one review, and those reviews for now, like we. Maybe by episode 200, we'll be like, no, let's change things up for 200 onwards. Yeah. But we've decided we are going to work our way through, and we don't know how many episodes, but I do think it's probably going to be at least the next 100. Every possible comic book movie that we can find. Now, like I say, we're not going to necessarily do everything in order. It might be that
we're not doing that. Not in order. We might take chunks at a time, but we are definitely not going to sit here and start at number 1 and go through all 26 movies of the MCU.
Yeah. Or what I mean is also by order. Like, we're not going to start from the 1940s first ever comic book. I don't know if it goes back that far, but we're not going to go back and do it like chronological release dates.
Yeah. No.
Or anything like that. We might spice things up sometimes with for instance, this week's episode is going to be tied in with our October, and then obviously Black Panther 2 is coming out soon, so we'll review that too. But we'll kind of try and keep things in a timely thing. But I do know we both agreed when we do start the X-Men, we will work our way through the X-Men. So it might be like 2 months of X-Men. Yeah, that being said, with us replacing the news, we will put in some trivia and stuff like that, which we both quite like doing. And we're just going to try and keep it fun, keep it short, for your time and ours. And we thought we set ourselves a nice challenge of working our way through comic book movies. Sorry, comic book movies. Yeah. We may bring guests on occasionally as well, because we like having guests, and equally we have guested on other people's channels as well. So yeah, that's kind of really what we're going to do. We might do the odd Instagram live as well. If there's something we fancy chatting about, we might just come hang out with you guys live on Instagram.
Yeah, so, a lot of the comic talk that we used to do is moving more toward Instagram. Like Mark has a new account where he posts all of his like comic stuff. So we're still around and we still talk about other things. We're just trying to keep the podcast down to kind of one focus.
Yeah, Mark Talks Comics is
go follow him. Mark Talks Comics.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that, to be honest. I just thought I didn't want to, like, if we were going to move this more towards movie podcasts, I didn't want to keep sharing my comics on Geeks Unleashed. I thought I would hive that out. So anyway, so whilst we've been off for 2 months, firstly, Jasmin, where did you go?
I took 3 weeks off and I went to Bali and it was amazing. And I had so much fun. I ate so much delicious food. I got sunburned. I went snorkeling. I went hiking up mountains. I got scammed. I went to festival. I every like travel experience you could have, I had. I had the best time. I really, really did.
What happened with your scam?
So like you have to pay attention like when you do money exchange.
Yeah.
And I went to a less than reputable money exchange place. So I only got
Uh,
scammed out of 40 US dollars, but like 40 US dollars would have converted to almost 600,000 in like Balinese
oh,
currency.
okay. Yeah.
So I mean, $40, not that big of a deal, but still, it was an inconvenience to say the least.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Definitely. I can imagine. Like, that's the thing. When you're in another country, there's a lot to take on board. You don't know where you are.
Yeah.
And obviously, these people get better. And this is what I always say, actually. Like, you know, you've got a job, I've got a job. We're good in what we do. Their job is to steal your money.
And they
So,
are good at that too.
and they're good at that too. So obviously, these scammers, probably the first 5 or 6 times or 25 times they did it, they probably weren't very good. But with practice,
Mhm.
they became very good at stealing people's money and
Yeah.
yeah, fraud and scamming and all that. I say this quite regularly actually. They become very good at putting pressure on people and catching them off guard. So I can imagine.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't go traveling. Last time I went abroad, I saw you in New York,
Yeah.
and I think over the summer period, I did take 2 weeks off, and I did do a little bit of stuff in the UK, but nothing on the
Yeah.
same level as
No
yourself.
passport stamps for you.
No, no passport stamps for me. No, I don't. I haven't left I guess the UK itself for quite a while. Like I say, April. Anyway, so have you been watching or reading anything? Probably a lot.
I have been catching up on some of the like I have a giant stack of manga next to my computer that I am working my way through. I've been watching like a lot of K-dramas as usual.
Yeah.
But not consistently doing too much of anything. I've been really kind of doing a lot more like cooking kind of stuff. So cooking has been taking up a lot of my focus lately.
Hmm. Um, I have watched two of the three spin-offs of Power.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I watched Force, the Tommy spin-off in Chicago, like 10 episodes. So good, so much better. Do you know what? Actually, the spin-offs are actually better than the original series, I think.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So then so we watched that. We took a bit of a break, and then we watched um, Ghost, Power Book 2. So actually, the first season is set before Tommy's series, which I hadn't realized until I started watching it. So I watched both seasons of that. So initially, I wasn't too keen on the Ghost spin-off because it felt like it was going to be like a teenage bopper thing. Because obviously, it follows Tariq when he goes to university and like he's studying. Because one of the conditions of his father's death to inherit all of his money was that he has to pass with a degree of whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever the highest points is. And I never went to university, I don't know, but basically they have no money. They I think the grandma's given an allowance, but that's basically it. And so he has to go to university and study. But then his mum at the end of Power was arrested, and so to pay for a top lawyer to get her out of prison pushes Tariq back into the world of crime. So actually, over the 2 seasons, you start seeing the son getting more and more involved in crime again.
Uh-huh.
And whilst I didn't like Tariq during Power, and even probably the first season of his show, he's actually starting to grow on me now, and it's not so much of the teeny bopper drama that it started off at.
Yeah.
As
Okay.
so, yeah, I'd recommend Ghost. I thought it was actually quite good. And
Interesting.
so, but I now do want to go and watch the final prequel that's the prequel they've released, the prequel of 50 Cent's character set in the 90s.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch that. I mean, you know about that. I can't remember the name of it now.
I mean, they're like
Uh,
38 spin-offs from Power, so I can't keep up with all of them.
Only three. There was going to be four, but they've cancelled one of them. So there was going to be a spin-off of the politician guy. I can't remember his name now, but they've cancelled that. And I'll be honest,
Okay.
I'm glad they've cancelled that. That would have probably been the worst one.
Yeah.
So I can't. I've read the odd comic, like, but not anywhere, not that much really. I don't think I've really done anywhere near the level of reading I should have been doing. Um, no, so I haven't really got anything to particularly shout about comic wise.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that pesky time thing has got in my
Yeah.
way. Um, I did, yeah. I shared a few of the comics that I've read on the Mark Talks comics. So just go over there and you'll see what I've been reading. Anyway, so we will jump into Constantine themed talk.
Yes.
So before we do, they have announced that there's going to be a sequel to Constantine.
Out of nowhere, 18 years later.
And it's going to be set in the DCEU, which is weird.
Yes.
But why not?
I mean, sure.
I mean,
hope they use it as a platform to introduce more Justice League Dark characters. Like, I would really love for us to finally have Zatanna.
I mean, I think they now are considering how they will introduce more and more characters. Like, you know, obviously we've got Black Adam coming. That's got Doctor Strange. Not Doctor Strange. What's his name?
Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate. Sorry.
That's a wrong comic, man. Wrong comic.
No, do you know what I was about to say? Sorry, back in like the 90s, there was a DC Marvel event and they merged Doctor Fate and Doctor Strange together to make Doctor Strange Fate. So they produced all these like one shots. Marvel and DC had this big event, Marvel versus DC, and they produced a load of comics called Amalgam. So they amalgamated loads of characters. So Batman and Wolverine, for instance, were merged and became Dark Claw. So they actually merged Doctor Strange and Doctor Fate, and yeah, so there was Doctor Strange Fate. So I was about to say Doctor Strange Fate for some random reason, so I stopped myself, unfortunately, midway. But yeah, so the Black Adam film obviously has introduced a lot of characters.
Yeah,
I think
heard good things about Black Adam so far. It had its New York premiere a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I want to see that. So,
yeah.
I mean, there is a big part of me that thinks this is more of The Rock loving himself, but you know.
I mean, okay, yes, sure, but I'm super excited to see Hawkman. Like, I think I'm really excited to see Dr. Fate. I also love Pierce Brosnan, and then Hawkman, and I love Aldous Hodge. So I'm super excited to see those two characters and how they play out.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I think it's going to be a really good movie. So, right, okay. So, Constantine 2 could be a sequel. There's no dates. There's nothing really.
No dates. Keanu Reeves has signed on. Same director, Francis Lawrence, has signed on, and rumors have it that Peter Stormare may be returning, but no other cast announcements have been made yet.
I mean, this is probably a good couple of years away, this film.
I mean, as long as Keanu and the same director are coming back, I think it'll be good no matter what they do. Like, I would love for them to bring Tilda Swinton back. I'd love for them to bring Djimon Hounsou back. But really, if they're putting it in the DCEU, like, I really want them to start introducing new characters.
I think we know obviously that the new owners are of Warner Brothers are looking to streamline
after they
things.
Freaking destroy the company, like, there's just so much. Who knows what they're doing over there? Like, they're just tearing everything apart right now.
I mean, every 2 or 3 years, Warner Brothers DC do go, oh, we've got a new 10-year plan. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure you do. So,
yeah.
I think it's like this ongoing joke. Their films make money, right? Like even the first Suicide Squad made money, but it was awful.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of their film, even the Joss Whedon Justice League, it made money, but it was just terrible.
Yeah.
So, they make money because they look good. Like, whoever does the advertising and the promotion does a very good job. They should actually pay those people a lot more money, whoever does the promotion.
Yeah. Well, DC has the iconic characters. Like, how can you keep messing this up when you have some of the biggest characters in comics ever?
Whilst I'm disappointed that Batgirl's been cancelled, what I heard was it was looking towards going into replacing Batman and Superman with Batgirl and Supergirl. Okay, that's fine if you're going to do it for a bit. But like you said, iconic characters. People love Batman and Superman.
Yes.
I'm not saying to ever get rid of Batgirl and Supergirl, because I think actually that would be pretty cool if you had that as a bit of an event. You kind of actually maybe spice things up.
Yeah.
A bit like I imagine what's going to happen with the new Avengers films. You know, we're going to have obviously our new Captain America, we're going to have War Machine, and because obviously the original Captain America and the original Iron Man are gone.
Yes.
So that's fine, but you know, Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill's story hadn't even scratched the surface. So
Right.
to get rid of those characters so quickly was so stupid. But obviously, there's a lot of rumors. Are they coming back? So we'll see.
Well, The Rock has been talking nonstop about a clash between Black Adam and Superman. So I have a feeling Henry Cavill is not done with the DCEU, but that really just kind of hinges on management. The DCEU is just so poorly managed that they're going to be the ones to shoot themselves in the foot at losing all of these great actors for some of these iconic characters.
I mean, if they're not careful, Henry Cavill will just end up at Marvel, and
Yeah.
then it'll just be like, "No, I'm done." So,
Yeah.
I mean, he'll just give him like the Captain Britain role at Marvel or something like that, and then that way, if he's done that, he'll be like, "No, I've got time for that as well." So.
Yeah, either that or he's just going to go straight back to Netflix and be like, "Yo, let's make The Witcher like a 10-season arc."
I mean, I'm sure he get paid more money for for movies, but yeah. Anyway, sequel. We don't know any more or more than you probably do if you googled it. But so I've pulled up some trivia this time around. I'm gonna test Jasmin. Look,
All right. I'm nervous.
I found this trivia online. I didn't make up any of the questions. Okay, finish this sentence. He who possesses the spear of destiny holds the in his hands.
Earth?
Fate of the world.
Okay.
Almost there. So the whole sentence says, "He who possesses the spear of destiny holds the fate of the world in his hands."
Okay.
This is shown on the screen right before the movie starts. Anyway, right. Shia LaBeouf plays Constantine's apprentice. What is his name?
Chaz.
Chaz Kramer. Almost there. So he's the taxi driver or cab driver that drives him around.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, doesn't make it the whole way.
He don't make it. Spoiler.
Yeah. Well.
Well.
Anyway, where does this movie start?
Mexico.
That's right. Isabel's message to Angela is left on the window of her room in Raven's car. What is the message? I don't expect you to know this. It's ridiculous.
What is the message? It's a Bible verse that,
but
but Rachel Weisz says that Bible verse doesn't exist in the Bible, and then Constantine is like, it does in the Bible in hell.
Oh, so yeah, it says core 1701.
Yeah, Corinthians 17. Okay.
Yeah. So, as you say here, Angela believes that this is ridiculous since there is no 17th act in Corinthians. Constantine tells that Corinthians goes to 21 acts in the Bible in hell.
Yeah.
Angela is played by right, I didn't through the rest of that. Right, at the beginning of the movie, when the Spear of Destiny is found, what is it covered with?
What is it? What?
Covered with.
What is it covered with? Newspaper?
Flag. Do you remember any more?
Oh, a flag. Is it covered with a flag in Mexico with a flag? I don't remember.
Nazi flag.
Oh, shocking.
All right, to get into Papa Midnight's club, one must physically tell what is on the card held up by the bouncer. The first time Constantine goes to the club, what is on the card?
Bird on a wire?
2 frogs on a bench.
Frogs on a bench.
Says here, the cards are tarot cards and Midnight's way of making sure that only supernatural enter his place. The second time Constantine tries to get in, he gets the card right, but the bouncer says he's wrong. Constantine knocks him out with a single punch.
Yeah.
The US city in the majority of those. Sorry, the US city is the majority of this movie set in. Sorry, what US city?
LA.
Yeah. What is the name of the twin who kills herself?
Isabel.
Yep. Yeah, Isabel ends up jumping off the top of the hospital building and killing herself so she can't handle everything she sees and having no one believe her, especially her own twin sister. So her sister used to do the same thing but lies about it, so everyone thinks Isabel is crazy and obviously not her. When Constantine commits suicide, he is dead for how long?
2 minutes?
That's right. So Constantine commits suicide because he no longer wants to have to deal with the visions of demons and half-breeds. He also doesn't want to deal with the treatments his parents put him through. After informing Angela of his suicide, he tells her 2 minutes in hell is a lifetime, as the title of the quiz implies. Keanu Reeves plays. Yeah, okay, blah blah. Right. Which disease does Constantine have that is killing him?
Terminal lung cancer.
Yeah, that's right. So, when Gabriel tells Constantine why he's going to die and go to hell, Gabriel says, "You're going to die
Because you
because you."
smoke 30 pack or a pack a day here, and because of the life you took.
Pretty much, yeah. So it says you're going to die because you smoked 30 cigarettes a day since you were 15, and you're going to hell because of the life you took. Yeah. So when Constantine goes to Midnight's Bar for the first time, what is shown? Oh, this is the same question.
What is
Stupid.
shown? Oh, on the card.
Oh, the card. Yeah, it's the same question. Okay. When Satan says the sacrifice as Constantine rises to heaven, what is he referring to?
Constantine made a deal, and he said he wanted Isabel's soul released from hell in exchange for his own.
It says here giving up his extended life so Isabel can go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
What does Baltazar always roll over on his knuckles?
Some fancy coin.
Yes, coin. Yeah. The coin is not from present day, so antique. Yeah. When Constantine asks for a mirror, he says it has to be a certain length. How high, at least, does the mirror have to be?
I don't remember. I don't remember because I always skip over that first scene because that first exorcism really freaks me out.
3 feet. This is the length required by the laws of physics to reflect the entire length of a person through 6 foot tall. The only person needs a mirror half the height of a person being reflected. No doubt Constantine rounded the number up to make sure the entire demon was trapped in the mirror. So, what item belonging to Angela's twin sister did Constantine use to see if his sister was in hell?
Her hospital bracelet.
No, that's what he brought back. He used a cat.
Oh, okay.
Cats are good, half in, half out. So, right, okay. Which actor plays Baltazar?
Oh, Gavin Rosdale.
Yeah. What is on the card? Constantine is shown at the front door the second time he goes to Midnight's Bar. So this is, I think, what you said.
The 2 birds on a wire.
A bird on a ladder.
Oh, bird on a ladder. And then the other one is like a frog in a dress.
Yeah. Of the following, which is not something that Beeman gave to Constantine in exchange for the can, when tipped upside down moves like a cow? Which of the following is not something?
You would have to give me the list for me to tell
Yeah,
you.
no.
Dragon. He gave him dragon's breath, cough syrup, the screamer beetle.
Okay, so unfortunately, this question doesn't actually give me a list, which is I'll skip over it anyway. It says Constantine receives all of these things except the robe to be used for exorcism. Oh, okay, this is a stupid question. All right, anyway, who is trying to hand Earth over to the son of the devil?
Who is trying to hand Earth
over to the son of the devil.
Oh, Gabriel.
Yeah, Gabriel uses the excuse that he is helping mankind become worthy of God's love by bringing hell to earth. If he helps the son of the devil bring hell to earth, the people of earth will have to work harder to resist temptation.
Jealous ass angel.
What does Constantine do or say to Lucifer as he is being brought up to heaven?
Flicks him off.
Yeah. Constantine sacrificed himself to bring Isabel's soul from hell into heaven, and self-sacrifice automatically gets you into heaven. Lucifer is seriously angry when he realizes he won't get to take Constantine to hell.
So, yeah.
What is the name of the priest who drowns himself in alcohol?
Okay, first of all, this always cracked me up because like the priest was an alcoholic, but he is also named after alcohol. He was the Father Hennessy.
Yeah. That must have been a joke. Like Father Hennessy helps Constantine with his search to get rid of to help rid mankind of demons and such. Right.
I love that guy, that actor, by the way, Pruitt. And he actually, like, the way that his eyes move, that is a natural thing. Like, he has it's a disorder called nystagmus, where you have uncontrolled eye movement. So it's always really creepy to me, like when he plays roles like this, because the way that he moves his eyes when he's looking through all of those newspapers to try to find a story, that's just his eyes naturally do that. That's not like him trying to do that.
What is the name of Constantine's friend who lives in the bowling alley?
Beeman.
Yeah. Beeman seems to have some sort of historian. At the beginning of the movie, he brings Constantine items that help destroy demons. It is also mentioned that Beeman likes bugs. Balthazar kills Beeman when he finds out he is helping Constantine. Constantine finds him dead at the table covered in bugs. And that is the end of my questions. Other than that, I think it was, although there's 23 there's actually only 22 because for some reason this website didn't give me the list for those questions.
I think I did pretty well.
Yeah, I think you actually did get most of them. I didn't actually count what you got right or what wrong. So now we'll talk about the actual movie itself.
Yes.
So 2005 this came out. Crazy.
Wow, 2005. Like, I think watching it recently, this was the first time that I rewatched this film and it felt kind of dated. Up until maybe like a few years ago, it didn't seem like it, I mean, it seemed like it had aged pretty well, but this last time I watched it, I was like, this maybe not so much.
So release date was actually February 18th, 2005 in America.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Is that? Oh, okay. That's your Valentine's Day. Runtime is 121 minutes. Budget of roughly 100 mil US dollars, and it made 230 mil.
That's a pretty good return.
I mean, there's a lot of special effects and Keanu's salary, so I'm
yeah, sure Keanu's salary coming off The Matrix was probably hella high.
Well, that's probably why he got this too. So
yeah.
I think that's pretty good though. You're like just more than double their money.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'll read these bits, or do you want? I'll give it a go. I'll give names a go. Based on John Constantine character from DC Comics by Alan Moore, Stephen R. Bissett, I think, Rick Wycheck, and John Totleben. All right, this movie is written by Kevin Broadbent and Frank Capello, directed by Francis Lawrence. It obviously stars a lot of people we've actually kind of mentioned already, but Keanu Reeves, Rachel Weisz, Shia LaBeouf, Tilda Swanson, Pruitt Taylor Vince. Don't know how to say that name. And, yeah, there you go. Gavin Rossdale and Peter Stormare. So, well, there we go. Do you want to give a summary?
Yeah, so summary for this one. Super simple. Supernatural exorcist and demonologist John Constantine helps a policewoman prove that her sister's suicide was something more.
I mean, that was the IMDb summary. We just went with the very brief summary there, rather than both of us.
Yeah, trying to explain it.
Ad-libbing, as we sometimes do. So, what's your overall thoughts then on this movie? I guess, like you say, you kind of alluded to it a minute ago, now versus then as well.
Yeah, so basically, like, when this movie came out, I loved this movie. And I know, like, a lot of comic book nerds were super upset because this version of Constantine doesn't look anything like the version of Constantine in the comics. But I had never read a Constantine comic in 2005, so I had no idea, what to expect with Keanu taking over the role. So looking at the film just as an independent kind of thing, not necessarily coming from the comic background, I really enjoyed Constantine. Constantine is one of those movies that I wouldn't put it in like a top 5 or top 10 favorite, but it's definitely a movie that is highly rewatchable to me. I really I don't know, stoic Keanu Reeves to me played the part of a jaded demonologist quite well. Like, I can't imagine that a character like that would be really jovial and happy and, cracking jokes all the time. So I really thought that the demure way that he played the character fit the theme. But I also really like this movie because it had so many big names for the time, right? Like, you had Jasmin who was coming off Gladiator. You had Tilda Swinton, who was on her up and coming like rise. Peter Stormare, who coming off Armageddon, everybody loved the crazy Russian in Armageddon. So it like this film was just like littered with great actors, and it was kind of like this ensemble cast that you didn't expect, right? And it just the supernatural elements were great. The seriousness of like what was at stake felt like it fit the theme of the film. And I just thought a lot of the elements that they put together here worked really well. But again, that's taking it completely out of the context of comics. So I have no idea what this movie feels like to people that were fans of the character John Constantine prior to the film. But me looking at this movie as just a horror movie that happened to be DC, I really enjoyed it.
I to be honest, I watched it obviously before we recorded, and I do not remember the last time I watched it. I can't remember. I don't think I rewatched it that many times, but I have enjoyed it. Like even when so there were some films like I remember the original Hellboy. I must have rewatched that like 20 times, and there's loads of the Marvel movies I've rewatched loads. I don't think this is one that I gave a serious amount of rewatching, but I've always really enjoyed it. And when I rewatched it today, I don't think it necessarily aged that badly. I kind of was amused at Shia LaBeouf because obviously Hollywood loved Shia LaBeouf back then. I don't necessarily have a problem with Shia LaBeouf. I think he probably had some mental health problems and
Yeah,
probably just
he
went
really
like,
needs to get his shit together.
yeah. I think I saw a recent interview with him actually, and he did seem like he'd realised that. So this is before his problems, and I do hope if there is a sequel that he does come back. I do hope that people are able to, if he's been able to sort himself out, I hope that people will
Yeah,
be able
and
to
this was
get on
right
board with it.
before he got Transformers, so it was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
right before his meteoric rise.
yeah. So overall, no, I really enjoyed it. I think it was so. This is the weird thing. I probably maybe like read one Constantine comic in my life. Most of my familiarity came with Constantine a little bit later on when he had his TV show. Was it Matt Ryan?
Yep,
Oh, what channel was that on in America?
NBC.
Yeah. So I watched that one season show, which I really enjoyed. Um, I loved it when they brought him over to Arrow.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I felt that they kind of killed the character when they put him on Legends of Tomorrow because Legends of Tomorrow was an awful show.
Yeah,
So what I'm trying to say is my connection with Constantine has only really been TV or movie based. I don't have the context of reading what it was like as in the comics, and that is I know as a comic fan, I know I should read Hellblazer, and I'm sure loads of comic fans are like, "What? You've never read Hellblazer?" No, I've never read Hellblazer, and I should. So anyway, so I think the movie's done really well. I think it was structured really well. I don't think it's aged that badly. I think some of the special effects, even back in 2005, were really good.
yeah,
So I walked into it back then and now still enjoying the film. So would have liked it if they'd have probably made him an Englishman, but they didn't.
yeah.
So uh,
Listen, Keanu Reeves had his chance to have that British accent when he did Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it was freaking awful. And so I'm super glad that they told him, "Look, dude, just be American. It's fine."
uh, so anyway, do you have a favorite character?
I do. My favorite character, even though he is only in it for a very small portion, my favorite character is 100% Satan. Peter Stormare to me is just so funny. I love him in everything that he is in. And for
Armageddon.
like the 10 minutes that he was in the film, he just kind of like stole the show. Like you just couldn't help but focus on him for the entire sequence that he was there. And like just the way he is so spiteful about wanting John Constantine's soul for himself. The fact that he cured his lung cancer so that John would keep living. And he's like, I'm going to give you another chance to come to hell because I trust that you're going to mess something else up and I'm going to see your ass real soon anyway. So I loved his character. I loved how, how quirky and like weird this version of Satan was. And I thought that Peter Stormare played it to perfection.
He's there's two roles I really love him in. Armageddon when he's on the space shuttle, sorry, on the space station, Russian astronaut,
Yeah.
but in Prison Break as well when he plays the gangster. Have you seen Prison Break?
I have not. I mean, I know what it is, but I have not watched all of the seasons.
He's in the first season, and I think some of the second season. but he leaves. Apparently, behind the scenes, he'd asked for more money, and they said no.
Mhm.
So he obviously is quite a big star, and he felt like he should be given some money, I think, to cover his status. And I believe they said no. Anyway, that's what I read at the time. But no, he was really good. No, I love that actor. I think he's really good. No, I don't know. Like, it's quite an obvious thing to say Constantine is your favorite character. I would say I do think Keanu is pretty good in everything that he's in. I think he generally covers every movie. Sorry, carries every movie that he's in. I love some of the voiceover stuff that he does, especially towards the end, and
Mhm.
he handles comedy and action very well. I don't know. I think really he did carry this whole movie, and I'm quite excited to see a sequel. So I did also think there was some other good supporting cast in there as well. Obviously,
Yeah,
Tilda
Gabriel was my
Swanson.
second favorite
Like,
character.
yeah, yeah,
Tilda
yeah.
Swinton is
Swanson, sorry.
so good, so good.
You talked about, obviously, we've talked about a sequel. Now, there's a mid-credits sequence where Shia LaBeouf becomes an angel. I don't know much about Constantine to be able to say where I think this is going to go, but I think had a sequel happened back then, it would have been very insular to the Constantine world.
Yeah,
Now I think if they're pulling it into the DCEU,
I think they have
I,
to make it broad.
I think that I think you'll definitely see some sort of Doctor Fate appearance. That would be a logical one for me to have in there. Is there anything you think a sequel might cover?
I think if they're going, I mean, the fact that they're doing one now within the framework of the DCEU, it makes me think that they have to be putting together a Justice League Dark. They
Hmm.
have to be.
Yeah,
And that Justice League Dark is just going to center around Constantine. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we end up seeing Boston Brand or Swamp Thing or Zatanna. Like, I think it could be very possible that they start bringing in other actual supporting characters instead of like, because in this film they're very removed from the comics, right? They're telling a singular story about this cop and her sister and how all of that plays out. But I think if they're going to do this sequel, it's going to have to bring in the characters that are connecting this story to the rest of the DCEU. So I think we're definitely going to see a lot more because I mean, other than Papa Midnight, like they killed off all of Constantine's friends in this one. So
yeah, yeah.
there is no more Hennessy, there is no more Beeman, Balthazar is gone. You know, like all of those characters have been taken care of. So it's like you're going to have a whole new cast pretty much to make the sequel work. And I think that has to be what the direction that they're going to go.
I think I'd like it if they did bring Shia LaBeouf back, especially because of the mid-credit sequence, which neither of us actually had realised there was one until about
Yeah,
2 seconds before
literally,
recording this
I've
video.
been watching this movie for 18 years and never once did I realize that there was a post-credit scene.
Back then, post-credit sequences were very, very
Rare.
few and far
Yeah.
between. Yeah, so it was quite. So the mid-credit sequence sets up Shia LaBeouf as an angel. Like Constantine goes over to his grave, puts his cigarette lighter down, and on the stone gravestone, turns around, walks off, and suddenly we see Shia LaBeouf sitting on his gravestone and flies up in the air with his angel wings, and
Hmm.
that's literally it. So to me, it felt like there was an idea of a sequel. Obviously, never happened, and now the new owners of Warner Brothers are like, actually, that wasn't a bad movie back then. Keanu Reeves still popular.
I
Keanu can
really
still
think
pull
though
off.
Keanu was the driving force behind that because he was on someone's late night show and they asked him something and they were like, "Would you ever reprise your role as Constantine?" And he was like, "Yeah, I loved that character. I would totally do that again." And then 2 weeks later, DC is like, "We're doing a Constantine sequel."
Do you think they saw that was like, call him
Yes,
now?
exactly. That's what I think
Uh,
too. I really
uh,
do. I think because they had been set up to do the show on HBO Max. They had recast everything. They had a whole new Constantine. It was going to be played by Siop, the guy who was in Gangs of London. Like that was in the works, and then when they announced a sequel, they decided to nix that series from HBO Max altogether.
I think I'm quite pleased. Really, I would prefer a more streamlined approach now. Marvel has taken a more streamlined approach now with its MCU, TV shows on Disney Plus and the movies and stuff. And I like the fact they are all connected
Mhm.
because I would always find it quite frustrating watching the Netflix shows and seeing them allude to the Marvel universe or
Yeah.
Agents of Shield dancing around the Marvel universe, and they kind of, even when they're Cloak and Dagger and all the other things, again, they sort of say they're all connected, but they weren't really. We know they weren't. We could tell obviously they were run by different management. There's obviously the TV management, the Marvel and the movie management, and with DC there seems to be multiple managements within.
Yeah.
We've got the CW, we've got this, we've got that, and like I know, and they tried to set it up. They tried to handle it quite well as they could during DC, the CW's Infinite Crisis, where they kind of implied that there's all different Earths out there, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of their way of covering it. And I think the new Flashpoint was going to kind of cover that too by bringing back Michael Keaton and having the Constantine TV show as like another Earth, so to speak. I'm glad that they've scrapped that. I actually, as a comic book fan, I like the linkages. I like shared universes. I think, even like I said about Power a minute ago, I like the fact that Tommy showed up in Ghost, and I like that stuff. That's kind
Yeah.
of I've always been a fan of shared universes, but when they're structured well. So
Yeah. When.
like I think Marvel now is doing it. They weren't when like they were selling off rights to Netflix and all this kind of stuff, and the ideas were there, but it wasn't that. But I think now they're trying to do it well. But the
I
unfortunate
honestly
thing,
think that that was like a mistake on Marvel's part. I don't think that they were expecting those Netflix shows to be as big as they were. I thought that they thought that this will be another source of income. We can put that over there on Netflix. Netflix can do whatever, and we'll focus on all of this stuff. And then it turned out Daredevil, especially, was just so phenomenally done that Marvel couldn't ignore the success of those shows anymore. So then they had to reincorporate it.
yeah, definitely. So I'm glad that the Constantine TV show is scrapped, and I'm glad that they actually. I'm not necessarily saying that this was the way to go, but I love Keanu, and I thought this was a good enough movie that why not bring up a sequel and incorporate it? And actually, this would almost make this the first ever DCU film, but we just obviously never realized it. So, like,
Yeah, kind of like Blade is the first Marvel film.
well, no, yeah, but that's not part of the MCU though, is it? Blade?
No.
Like,
Well, this first Constantine film wasn't either.
no, but now if they make number two and it's a direct sequel, but then it's in the DCEU, this
Yeah.
will be the first ever DCEU movie, and obviously that wasn't planned. I guess
Yeah.
like Man of Steel was never planned to launch a shared universe, but it did, and
Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, I don't know where a sequel goes story wise. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I just hope they don't mess it up.
Yeah. I mean,
That's always
I'm hoping for Justice League Dark. We'll see.
yeah. So, um, what are your thoughts on the structure of the movie?
I really thought that it's paced pretty well. I kind of like, well, kind of. I actually really love the blind open where it's just like suddenly we're in Mexico and some dude finds a thing, and then all of a sudden he gets hit by a car and he's like immortal. And then it's kind of like, okay, so we got this immortal dude that finds this thing and some shit's about to go down. So I really just kind of like how they jump you right into the story. There's no build up, there's no introduction of characters. Like we get the Spear of Destiny at the very beginning, and then it jumps straight from the Spear of Destiny to Constantine performing an exorcism. So they don't waste time with exposition and all of that stuff and getting you familiar with the characters. They literally just dump you in the middle of all of this action already. So I really love how the film kind of hits the ground running, and then it just keeps that pace throughout the entire film. I loved, and I think this is like a product of the times, like I just kind of loved that this was dark. Like bad things happen. The characters have like miserable, shitty lives. It was not trying to be pretty. It was not trying to be something that it wasn't. It was kind of like it was dark and it was scary. But at the same time, it's like they're trying to make it work for them anyway, as opposed to like this woe is me, there's nothing I can do, yada yada yada. So like as for me, with especially with Constantine's character, like as jaded as he is with what he does, he is still very concerned with what happens to his soul when he dies. And so him struggling throughout the whole film, like literally trying to buy his way into heaven, I think that is a really nice theme that they carry throughout the whole thing. So I just think to me, it was done really well. Like at the time, I remember I loved this movie, and I still really, really like this movie 18 years later.
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of, I know they're very separate, but it reminded me a lot of the first Blade. And I know that
Yes.
they're not that similar, but it kind of,
But it's the same vibe. Like it's the
yeah, it's the
same.
same vibe. I
Yeah.
think it's the same. I don't know, like I get, and this is actually something where we've said this before about, I guess, coming back to this whole shared universe thing. Think about the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise, like how they wanted to create this dark, gritty movie, but they also wanted to start their own shared monster universe. So they
Right.
just threw everything at it, rather than actually what we've said sometimes. Why don't you just concentrate on making a good movie?
Yes.
Like, and yeah, okay,
Do
if you
one
want to go,
thing.
yeah, and if you want to make a shared universe from that movie, if that was your plan, maybe just have a tiny cameo, just
Right.
like maybe like even in the mid credits, like look at the first Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr., where Samuel Jackson comes in on the mid
Yeah.
credit sequence, and that was brilliant. Like that actually, what they did
Yeah,
was they had
because
a
at the
really good,
time, none of us knew who the hell Nick Fury was.
yeah, well, I mean, comic film fans did. Well, I knew who he was, and so. But also when he's like, "Oh, they're the Avengers Initiative," I was like, "No way!" I was like, "What?" And then obviously the Hulk came out that same year, and Robert Downey Jr. showed up in the Hulk at the end as well. So, but with this movie, like obviously they never knew about shared universe back then. Shared universes weren't really a thing.
Yeah.
So what they did was they probably didn't even necessarily think, is this going to get a sequel? They just went and made a good standalone movie.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of standalone movies back then. Blade was obviously one of the rarities, but we had a lot of standalone films. I know there's several Batmans and Supermans, and obviously Spider-Mans as well with Tobey Maguire, but other than that, they were a lot of just standalone movies. So they just went in and made a really good standalone movie.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, they carried a good story arc throughout for Rachel Weisz's character and Keanu's character. So Rachel Weisz obviously trying to understand her visions, her sister's visions, her sister's death, and sort of, I think they tied that up quite well. They also gave Shia LaBeouf's character quite a nice story arc from The Apprentice. Now, actually, 18 years later, we've realized actually to becoming an angel, which we never
Yeah.
realized back then. Even Keanu's character, his burden of his guilt and his sins and the things he's done, and actually that he's so desperate for eternal life in heaven. And actually, I think it's quite profound. His whole 2 minutes in hell is actually like a lifetime. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, as a Christian myself, I don't want 2 minutes in hell.
Nope.
So
Sure don't.
like, I don't want any time there. And so obviously, obviously I'm not trying to preach now, but it's obviously something to bear in mind. So I do think that was a really good character journey for those were the sort of the three constant characters throughout the movie, and I think they had good character journeys that were not kind of brushed under the carpet in a big fight scene, and you kind of forgot about the character development at the end.
Yeah.
The character development still happened with the big fight scene at the end. So I think the writing credits, they did really well, basically. And even the CGI, I don't think it's aged that badly. I think
No, it hasn't.
it's
It hasn't. I think it's just more like the overall look and feel of it nowadays compared to, the kind of films that we get now. It just
actually, that's a nice segue there. That's your next question. How does it compare to more recent comic movies?
That's the thing. Like to me, it feels like one of those. I don't want to say like classics, but it feels like it's still in a category by itself. You know what I mean? It to me, this Constantine 2005, this is a standalone film. They wrapped up the story. There is an ending. The characters have their redemption, and it's like we're done. We are done with this, right? Like, yes, some people survived, so there is room for them to show up again. But at the same time, it was all wrapped up, nice in a box with a bow and everything. So it didn't leave you expecting more. It didn't leave you wanting more. And so I think that is one of the unique features about films that happened before Iron Man. So pre 2010, right? Those films had the liberty to tell a singular story, to tell it well, and then be done with it. And if they got a sequel, great. But if they didn't, you didn't feel like you were missing out on anything. And I don't think that the superhero films or the comic book films that are coming out nowadays have the same luxury. I think so many more people are now invested in the comic world that they expect there to be those Easter eggs, those, you know, those little nods, those winks to something bigger, something else that's happening down the line. So I just think that the films nowadays don't have the luxury of being a singular standalone film. Like all of the films that come out now, they are prepped for 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, like multiple features to come out after them. And so I think
Well,
that that's
I was
why
to say
this
that
film to me like is just so, I mean, it stands out like to for that reason, because this is a comic book film. It told a story. It wrapped up its story in its first film, and then for 18 years we heard nothing from, you know, from this film, and now all of a sudden there's talk about a sequel.
I think it's a clever move to bring in a sequel based off this film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the only film franchise to have sequels 20 years later. So,
Yeah.
um, what was that Eddie Murphy film? He
Oh,
played the
Coming to America.
Prince. Yeah. Like, wasn't that like 20, 30 years later as well?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not the only franchise to ever have a sequel so many years later. But yeah, like you say, a lot of comic book movies nowadays are so heavily linked.
Yeah.
And actually, you're disappointed when they're not linked cleverly.
Right.
So,
We
I
have
haven't
reached a whole new stage, I think,
of
in the comic
expectation.
storytelling. Yeah, exactly.
We've
Exactly. And
got
so like you could not make this film today. You could not make this first Constantine film today because it would flop.
I think they could only make it. They could have the same movie as long as they probably, like you say, edited in to incorporate maybe like a guest appearance or two by,
Right. You would
or
have to have another franchise head in this film if you made it today. Like that's why I'm saying I think that this sequel that they're doing, it's going to have another franchise head in it. Whether that's Black Adam, whether that's bringing in like Swamp Thing or somebody a big name like that, or even if you bring in someone like on the periphery, like if you bring in a Shazam or something like that, this film, the sequel, is going to have to step into that big like playground. Like you're going to have to bring in someone else, otherwise no one is going to care.
let's move into ratings. How would you rate this film out of 5?
Honestly,
Back to
this film still
fives.
gets a 5 for
Yeah,
me.
do you know what? I'd give this 5. I think it stands out well. I think it's aged really well.
Yeah.
It doesn't look. It's not cheesy. There's no
Yeah.
cheesy script.
And
There's
it's an
no.
eternal story. Like you can tell this story in 100 years and it would still make sense, right? Like it's the story itself is not ever going to age.
Mm-hmm. So 5 out of 5s all round. So it's a
I
very
think that's
rare
the first, like
occurrence.
where we give 5s, like, and we both like agree.
Oh no, I think we've done it before. We did it on the second Suicide Squad film, I think. I can't remember what else now.
It might have happened before.
Peacekeeper TV series, maybe.
Oh, Peacekeeper. No, that was really good. Yeah.
So our next episode, we are back next week with there's not much
More
of
spooky
Halloween left.
season.
Yeah, not much of Halloween left, but we're gonna come back with, as we said, a comic book movie. 30 Days of Night we're gonna hit up. By the way, there is no order to our films.
No,
Like
none at all.
we have a list now of the superhero. Well, I've written a list, and but yeah, we kind of, like I said, we're going to spice it up a little bit. 30 Days of Nights next week, and so you can follow us on social media. We're Geeks Unleashed, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and come say hi.
And you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts: Google, Podbean, Apple, Spotify. We are everywhere. So please leave us a 5-star review and tell your geeky friends.
Have a good week.
Good journey.